So this talk is really the beginning of the series of prosperity, looking at prosperity. And I thought I would tell you a little bit about my own journey with prosperity. So here I am, mid-20s, living in New York City. You think, oh, this is great. Except I was having panic attacks. And I was having panic attacks because I had this fear that I was going to become a homeless bag lady in New York City. You know, the ones with the cart. And all my belongings would be in this one cart. And I'd be like disheveled, and I'd have so many layers of clothing on. People would be like, what's the deal? And I wouldn't be nice and clean. So that's my fear. And I gotta tell you, that fear, it kept me up many a night. And it bothered me so much that it influenced how I worked. I worked 70-hour work weeks as the norm. Because the drive was, I was going to control and do everything in my power to prevent that fear from manifesting. So you can only imagine when you're working those hours for a prolonged period of time, the effect that it has on your body. And so, of course, I became ill, and I needed to take a leave of absence. When I returned, I was surprised that my mentor, who also happened to be my boss, did an appraisal on me that rated me below acceptable level. And this is now the 90s in banking. So with that grading, that meant that I was going to be downsized. And I think, here it is. Here it was. My fear manifested, becoming real. How is that possible? I've been working so hard. But you know, one could say that my fear and my worry created the inevitable outcome that I would lose my job. Now, I know some of you are thinking, no, that's not possible. Yeah, really, it is. Because even though I was taking action to live a prosperous life, what was happening? I had an underlying belief system. And that underlying belief system said that I wasn't going to be capable of taking care of myself. I wasn't going to be capable of taking care of myself. And what do we know? We know that our inner consciousness becomes our outward manifestation of the world that we live in. Did you hear me? Okay. Now, before I get deeper into the exploration of prosperity, I want to stop for a moment and just do a couple of definitions. And I want to do this because I want to make sure that we're all coming from the same page. And I remember that when I first came into Unity, people talked about these three terms as what I'm going to define. And it was always confusing to me. So I want to make sure that when you hear the word prosperity, abundance, or substance, that we are all on the same page. Okay? So I'm going to start off first with the word prosperity. And if you look in a dictionary, today's dictionaries, you will see that prosperity is usually tied to financial success. But then if we study the etymology, and etymology is the origin of the word and how it has historically developed and its meaning has shifted over time. So if we go back to the root word, which is prosperous, in the 14th century Latin word, and they spelled it a little differently than you would imagine. It's Prosperus, is how they spelt it, okay? So when this word originated, the meaning is according to one's hope and to one's expectations. So when I talk about prosperity, that's the definition I'm going to be using, according to one's hope or one's expectations. And then we'll look at the word abundance. Now, when we look up in the dictionary today, abundance is tied to affluence, to wealth, as well as to be overflowing in fullness. But culturally, there's also another shift in that word, in that we associate abundance with someone who has a large amount of riches or wealth. It's kind of how we see that in our culture. And then if we look at it etymologically, the word abundance, once again, comes from the 14th century Latin. The root word is abundentia, which means fullness, plenty, to overflow. So when I talk about abundance, I'm going to be talking about fullness, plenty, to overflow. Do you see the distinction that I'm making? Yes? Okay. And then substance. Dictionary says that it is that of which a thing consists, physical, matter, or material. And this comes from the 12th century Latin word of substantia. And this means being, essence, material, to stand under, to be present, substance. So I'll be using that term, substance, to mean being and essence. Got it? All right. So we're all on the same page now. All right, good. So in Unity, when we talk about substance, we're really talking about divine substance. And that is the essence of everything that we are and that the universe is made of. So then the next question is, well, where does this substance come from? Now, I think you'll all agree with me when I say it's not from the man with the big beard on the throne in heaven who dispenses this substance out to those he deems worthy. No. Really, it's quite simple. Substance is the allness that we move and live and have our being. The allness that we move and live and have our being. It's about understanding that the universe, God, light, principle, whatever you want to call that, is the harmonizing factor of all life. Now, in Unity, when we define the harmonizing factor, we call that love. We call that love. And so once we keep ourselves centered on the truth that love is the essence of the universe, we're then able to recognize the abundance of the universe. Being in that divine flow, that essence, that substance, love, allows us to acknowledge that we are limitless. That there is substance that's ever present. And then we can recognize that we can shape this substance as a natural way of us expressing, as a natural way for us to express. And you know I love me some Eric Butterworth, right? This book, if you don't have it in your arsenal, it's called Spiritual Economics. I suggest if you're really looking at your prosperity, this is gold. This is gold. And every time I read it, I'm like, oh, yeah, I forgot that. So seriously, this is an amazing tool. But Eric Butterworth writes in this book, he says, it is important to recall that it is not really for lack of abundance that you are experiencing want, but for lack of the awareness of the ever-present reality of divine substance. And the faith to shape it into manifest form. Now, I don't know about you, but that sounded kind of powerful to me. And you remember last week in my talk, I spoke about that life is lived from the inside out. Life is lived from the inside out. But yet, we fight so hard to camouflage what we feel, what we believe, and what we fear from within. And then we'll use affirmations and visualizations in an attempt to change our limiting beliefs. And then our nose gets all bent out of joint when it's not working the way that we think it should be working. And we go, well, why isn't it working? And I have to tell you, in my early days in Unity, I asked the same questions. Because guess what? I was doing what they told me. Positive thinking, affirmative prayer, denials and affirmations. These are the keys to manifesting my good. But here I was laid off. Ooh. So can you imagine being a Unity convert, and here you are being laid off? And at that time, I didn't know better, so I felt ashamed. I felt embarrassed. I stopped going for a little while because I didn't know better. Butterworth to the rescue once again. The important thing is to hold to the awareness that you are created in substance, formed of substance, and ceaselessly supported by substance. And I want to read one other thing, so just bear with me a moment. It says, there is a common confusion among the practice of affirmative prayer that if you speak the words of truth over and over, you impress them on your subconscious mind, and thus they become true for you. They do not become true because you affirm them. They do not become true because you affirm them. You affirm them because they are true. You affirm them because they are true. You are synchronizing your consciousness with the reality of truth, creating a channel through which the mystical flow may do its powerful work through you. Now, some of you may be thinking, oh, piece of cake, I knew this. And I approached prosperity consciousness in this matter. I worked at synchronizing my consciousness with truth, and still, my life is not reflecting prosperity. Why? Right? Why? And I think the answer is really simple. We cannot create from rejecting who we are. We cannot create from rejecting who we are. Anything manifesting from rejection of self cannot be abundance or prosperity. It's counterintuitive. It's not the way that spiritual laws work. It's imperative that we honor what we are, divine and beautifully made. You know I harp about this, don't you? We are divine and beautifully made. And we need to really come to embrace all aspects of ourself. And we need to do that to claim our divine inheritance. I got to tell you, Unity folks, it is time. It is time for you to be the expression of the divine. It is time for you to be the expression of the divine and know that the universe is designed to support you. Not against you, but to support you. So, the issues of lack, when they happen, it's when we don't believe this as truth. when all we see are our limitations and we call them unholy. When we make an attempt to eradicate those aspects of ourselves that we don't like. That's really like telling the universe, you know what? I think you made trash when I was created. And when we believe those negative things about ourselves, we can't help but manifest a life of lack. So when we believe we are not enough, not worthy, insert whatever term you want here, we cannot be in the flow of abundance and divine love. Can we? If we are mean to someone else, can that be seen as love? It's not rhetorical, people. Can it be seen as love if I'm being mean to someone else? What is it seen as? Meanness. What else? Fear. What else? Guilt. Bullying. Lack. Hate. Anger. But why is it okay for us to do that to ourselves? Why do we accept that it is okay for us to do that to ourselves? All right, so Butterworth, you know he supports me. I think he's really brilliant, actually, because he agrees with a lot of the things I'm thinking. He writes this: God is a ceaseless flow of substance, and no matter what the extent of the need, universal substance can easily supply it. But there is one thing God cannot do. God cannot supply lack. This is because lack is a state of mind, and the condition cannot be remedied until the state of mind is altered. So this is why I talk each week about acknowledging the truth of what we are, divinity, as well as raising consciousness. You know, those are the two things that I'm constantly drumming, isn't it? For those of you who have been here week after week, I'm constantly drumming about what are we? We are divine. And what are we here for? We are here to raise our consciousness. Those two are key to our abundance and prosperity. Yes, we are divinity. We are special. We are anointed. And by raising our consciousness, we become expansive to the point where we recognize that we are entitled to abundance and support from the universe. That's what getting into the flow is about, folks. When we talk about getting into the flow, that's getting into the flow. And then once we're in that flow, I got to tell you, it's not about gaining money or material things. It's about being an awakened consciousness that resides in the flow and allowing it to support you in all your needs. The problem is that here we are, we forget this because we're on this earth plane and we get bumped around an awful lot and jostled and whatever else goes on. And that's why we do our meditation and we do our prayer to continue to connect to oneness. All right, so now maybe some of you are thinking, all right, I get this. I get the nuances on how spiritual laws work, and now I'm going to make this law work for me. Well, hold your horses. Because if that's your thinking, it's coming from your humanness. It's coming from your egoic existence. Because spiritual laws don't work that way. It's not something that you do, it's something that you be. It's not something that you do, it's something that you be. And I know you guys hate the B word. I use it an awful lot. But you know, even Butterworth. He gets the B word. It is simply a change of your consciousness in which you become synchronized with the ceaseless activity of divine love, of healing life, or of prospering substance. What he's really saying, what we're both saying here, is to stop trying to demonstrate or have a miracle happen. Did you hear me? Stop trying to demonstrate a miracle happening. And why we're saying that is because when we are in the flow, we are clear that the kingdom is within us. And that's all we need to do. That is all we need to do. Because once we start talking about miracles, it suggests that something magical is going to happen, or something is going to intervene on our behalf. In the universe, all is possible. There's no miracles. All is possible. Bless you. So what do you believe is real? Is it what you see with your human eyes? And the things that the experts tell you are real? Or do you see your reality from the light of the kingdom within? So in my own personal experience that I described to you earlier, I believed, underlyingly, in my inability to take care of myself. So it would be inevitable that I would manifest a job loss. I also believed the experts who said the economy was on the fritz, and the only way for corporations to be healthy was for them to fire thousands of people. I believed that. That's what the experts said. So really, in my case, the worry is in that essence, in that moment, became my manifestation. Because I unknowingly allowed my belief system to use the law of visualization. The law of visualization is a spiritual law. Remember, I keep saying life is lived from within out. From within out. And that when we are in the divine flow, our consciousness can see the spiritual substance that's available for us to manifest whatever we need. And from that flow, we can draw to us all the health, wealth, and wisdom that we need. And we can do this without losing our truth. Without losing our truth, being in the flow. Because when we focus solely on visualizing material wealth, we lose our center. And we become someone that worships things. Visualizing for material things means one's focus becomes the riches and wealth on this plane as opposed to the kingdom within. The riches of the kingdom within. You know, it's really a matter of throwing away your divine inheritance for money. Your divine inheritance is worth so much more. You can do so much more. So I'm really talking about true seeing. Seeing from within and releasing the views that others have created for you as your reality. True seeing. Because when we see from within, we get to really see the light, love, and abundance. And that is how we co-create. Not from lack, not from fear. By keeping ourselves focused and centered on our divine inheritance, we become abundant. We become abundant. And that, my friends, is prosperity consciousness. All right, Butterworth has my back. What does he say on this? You are already created in the image likeness of God, the universe, love, principle, whatever name you want to use there. You do not need to change your self-image by rejecting what you are, but by discovering what you are. And I keep talking about the truth of what we are. Divinity. And I'm doing this as a reminder because it's so easy to forget. You are the I am of the universe. The I am of the universe. You are the expression of mind, and it's only from this reality that you create being healthful, wealthful, and wiseful. And you know I got to bring this up. It's not about being all good. We say that term, we overuse that affirmation, it's all good. And usually it comes from a place of we're trying to shift our negative thinking to positive, but often it comes from a place of fear that no matter what the situation is going, whatever's going on, I'm going to be okay. We've gotten used to saying and thinking these positive phrases because we think that's what truth students do. That's what truth students are supposed to do. It's not necessarily so. But when we do that, if we are completely focused in our head, when we say these positive mantras and affirmations and whatever, it's coming from our humanness. And I got to tell you, that's very limiting. Very limiting. So I'm inviting you to be in the flow. Be in the flow of the infinite. Realizing the truth of what you are. Next week, I'm going to be talking about prosperity from a different angle, and the angle is from more than these things you'll be able to do. You know, talking about the error thinking about prosperity and spirituality. So I hope that you will join me on that discussion.